listen to this really closely. This is kind of, let's see if this sounds like what you feel like you have seen. I pulled this from a book by, I think it was Tony Robbins. He said, life is like a river, and most people jump on the river of life without ever deciding where they want to go. So in a short period of time, they get caught up in the current events, current fears, current challenges. They merely go with the flow. It's kind of like the leaf. They become a part of the mass of people who are directed by the environment instead of by their own values. As a result, they feel out of control. They remain in this unconscious state until one day the sound of raging water awakens them, and they discover that they are 5 feet from Niagara Falls in a boat with no oars. At this point, all they can say is, oh, shoot, or something like that. But by then, it's too late. They're going to take a fall. Sometimes it's an emotional fall. Sometimes it's a physical fall. So, for example, some disease crept up due to dumb health choices over and over. Sometimes it's a financial fall. It's likely that whatever challenges you have in your life currently could have been avoided by some better decisions upstream. What do we call that? When somebody is 5 feet from Niagara Falls. Or the other one that's the same kind of feel as you have somebody climbing up this ladder of success. They're just climbing and feeling like, okay, I'm supposed to be doing this, or this is what everyone else is doing. And they get to the top of the ladder, and they realize that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. What do we call this in our culture, in our society? We have a name for this. When you get to the top and you go, what the heck have I done with my life? Or they're at just this side of Niagara Falls or the falls. What do we call that? A midlife crisis. Where people they've just been going along. I saw this, true story. When I was in my mid-20s, I got a job at a bank. And for a while, I was just, like when I was in college, I repossessed cars. That was my job. We'd go and steal cars and get paid for it. It was really fun. Yeah, that's the difference. And we would do it at 2 in the morning, and we'd just sneak over to somebody's house and get in and drive away. It was really fun. But I then, later on, when I graduated with a degree in psychology, which not many jobs with a degree in psychology. You're the psychology person, right? There's hopefully there's more than there were 30 years ago. Anyway, I was working in the bank, and I thought, oh, no, they asked me to be a loan officer. Climb the ladder of the bank person. And I have nothing against banking people. Nothing whatsoever. Don't get me wrong, I hate banking. I don't. My wife and I both met in the bank. It was, some of my best friends were while I was there at the bank. But they said, do you want to be a loan officer? And I said, no, okay. And so for a couple of years, I was a loan officer in a bank. And I found out really, really soon, I hated this job. Hated it. I didn't care that anyone else loved it. It doesn't matter to me. But the thing that I saw when I looked at, I remember I was talking to one guy, his name was Hal, at this one branch where we were. This was in Provo. And he had been working in this banking system for 30 years. Now, and I'm not one to say, well, there's a right and a wrong amount of money that you should make. He'd been working there for 30 years, and he was making $30,000 a year. And he had a family of 8 kids, thereabouts. I think it was 8. And he would come to work, and he would just go, I hate this job. And I said, Hal, why don't you do something else? And he was my age now. And he said, I can't leave this. Why couldn't he leave it?
Didn't provide himself any choices when he planned years ago. He didn't have any options.
Yeah, he had no options at mid-50s. He has no options.
Well, I think they're more limited, but I hear this a lot with some of my older friends. I can't do anything about it. Nobody will hire someone my age.
Yeah, yeah. And he was stuck to health insurance also. I mean, the common thing that you hear is don't ever have family without health insurance of some kind. That's kind of the mantra. And I know I had one friend who, and I'm for that. I had a friend whose baby was born stillborn, had the cord wrapped around his neck. The day he was born, he'd been that way, lack of oxygen or nutrients or whatever, for quite some time in the womb. And the kid was born on August 25th with, and his body was kind of like this, and couldn't see, couldn't hear. I mean, it was just it was a kind of a grace, you know. Thankfully, he passed away on December 25th of that year. But the point of it was, it would have cost him over $200,000 to cover the expenses of this baby and all the things they tried to do to help it survive. So you got to have health insurance. And that's where this guy was. He was kind of like, I can't do anything. And I looked at him, and I could see where he was on the ladder and where I was. And they wanted me at this bank to climb that ladder. And I looked at Hal and I went, I can't do that.